Optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the new Series 1 Gremlin figures from NECA Toys of George. Now, George was kind of like the leader in the serious badass from the Gremlin 2 movie. As you can see, he comes with a cigar, which is really kind of neat. He's really creepy looking. I mean, he just looks like he's pissed off at the world. Now, one thing that I've automatically noticed on here is he really kind of looks like he's got a shit ton of lipstick on here. And you can even see it here through the pack. Well, maybe you can't. Maybe you can. That right there looks like it's a streak where the figure is bounced around and you kind of see a little paint scuff right there on his lip. That's a little unfortunate, but it looks like he's got a lot of lipstick, making his lips much thicker looking than it actually looks here in the picture. So I don't know. When in terms of Transformers, I always look at this guy as kind of like the Megatron of the Gremlins, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm on the fence about this guy. Mostly because, like, this looks really good. But then the paint job on this one just doesn't look as great. Just because with NECA, sometimes you get good-looking figures, sometimes you don't. And mostly it comes down to the actual applications of those paints. But this one, it kind of looks sloppy. And that really kind of bums me out. You see other figures that are here in the line. You have Gizmo and George, Lenny, Daffy, Combat Gizmo, and of course Mohawk, and they're basically kind of just smaller versions. They're about that big, so I'm really actually surprised at the size of these. But then you have the Flasher, George, Daffy and Lenny, Lightning, and of course the Phantom. So very kind of cool looking packaging, and I'm really excited about these figures. I'm just really hoping that this one doesn't let me down. Maybe it'll grow on me. I don't know. We'll see. But let's get it open and see if it does actually grow on me. Okay, guys, so here we have George open up and out of its packaging. And as you can see, you know, honestly, the figure has really kind of grown on me. He still has really, really big lips, and that really puts me off. I'm not a huge fan of the way that the lips look on him. It's just way too thick. It looks like he kind of goes to the same doctor that like Megan Fox or Lindsay Lohan go to. It's just like he's got Botox injected in there or something. But the sculpt on here and the paint in general is absolutely gorgeous. You can see some fantastic detail. These are very well detailed figures. It really does impress me. NECA never really disappoints me in terms of the level of detail that they put in their figures, especially recently. And they're putting a lot more articulation in these things than previous versions of their toys. Now, his little cigar, it kind of looks like Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Pooh. It's just a little tiny cigar. It's nothing spectacular, and it really doesn't. You kind of have to wedge it in there just to kind of get it to stay in. But I mean, you can get it to stay in there. I mean, it's in there pretty good, but it's not actually pegged in there or anything. It's just kind of wedged up in there. Now, in terms of his articulation, getting that out of there, their heads are kind of on these little ball joints, but you don't get too much range of motion. You get a very little bit, so you kind of get it up and down, side to side kind of, and it obviously rotates all the way around. You got a little swivel joint here at the shoulder, moves up and down, in and out, also bends at the elbow, and also rotates and moves in and out here at the wrist. So that's actually really nice. Now the legs also kind of on ball joints where you can kind of angle them around, but the knees, based on the way that they have the feet, you can actually get them to stand like this. But then you're really kind of stuck with the feet because it pushes the feet all the way up. If you straighten them all the way out, he's going to have his legs, or I'm sorry, his feet kind of dangling like that, and they're straight up, and you can't bend the feet down anymore. So you kind of have to chicken leg him, much like, say, the Starscream figures from Transformers. But you can kind of see where you're going with this, and you pretty much just have to position it like that, with his legs kind of bent. But just in general, though, I mean, that's really cool. Now, in terms of the detail on here, like I said, just absolutely exquisite looking detail on these figures all the way around. Every bit of these is just beautifully painted. You can see on here that there is a little bit of a scraping mark here on his upper lip that's scraped on the inside of the packaging. So when you're going through, just look through it when you're picking out your figure and make sure that you get one that doesn't have that paint flaw. But absolutely gorgeous. No, I'm not going to say anything. Really kind of cool. I absolutely love the way that this looks. And he had his little stogie, and that just makes him look so much cooler. At first, I was kind of nervous because recently, NECA Toys has been having a lot of problems with their figures, where like their assembly plant or the factory or something, the quality of the plastic is not very good, and you'll bend a figure and the joint completely snaps off. I've had it happen to 2 figures of mine, most recently the Elder Predator and a couple other Predator figures, and that really disappointed me. So I was very, very on the fence about getting these figures. I've always loved NECA, but just I don't like paying the $15.99 that these price points are created, just because it's pretty expensive. I mean, it's $16, and then when you factor in tax and stuff, you're almost paying $20 for this figure. And to have it completely snap off, and most times you're only able to get these in like comic book stores or Toys R Us or things like that, you know, and usually when they're gone, they're gone. And it's not like you can take the figure back in and replace it and get a brand new one. Luckily, the people over at NECA are very, very good about replacing the figures. You just have to contact them, which is a little bit too much work for some people to do. But if you actually put in the effort, you can get nice replacements. Now, one thing that is kind of interesting is when they go from being a Mogwai to a Gremlin, they completely change and get ridiculously bigger. As you can see, here's the Mogwai version of George, and huge difference. He doubles in size and gets a hell of a lot uglier. But I really love how they kept a lot of the same design elements. Obviously, they went off of the movie itself, and the Gremlin version definitely looks the same as the Mogwai version. I mean, you can see it in the face, and definitely in the ears. One thing that's different, though, while this one has the really creepy eye movements, which I don't know if you can see that very well, they removed that, and they actually don't have that on here, which I'm actually kind of happy that, because that's really kind of creepy. Now, just because I'm actually recording this video live, and people in my Ustream chat are asking me various things. Somebody actually asked me to do a size comparison with the classic Seeker mold. And here you see George next to Starscream. And George is definitely taller. While this is probably about 6 inches or so, these are definitely about 7-inch figures. Now, while some younger people probably don't know what Gremlins are or who they are, for me, who grew up in the 80s, I absolutely love the fact that NECA is bringing these figures and doing a fantastic job with them and bringing them to us. Gremlins was actually one of those movies where when I was young, it really creeped me out. It was definitely one of those movies that I didn't like watching alone. And for many years, I've actually put off rewatching it. But George was always one of those kind of characters that I now really associate as being like the Megatron character. And NECA has done a fantastic job of bringing these figures to us in wonderful detail and giving collectors really something to kind of brag about. This is definitely going on my shelf, and without a doubt, a figure that I would recommend to anybody who's got kind of a nostalgia for those 80s sort of kind of cheesy horror movies. Because when it comes down to it, that's really what Gremlins was. A cheesy 80s horror movie. And this was the bad guy. So from Gremlins 2, here's George. At $15.99, you can pick it up at Toys R Us, or maybe comic book stores at maybe a slightly higher price. But as I said, if you like these figures, I definitely recommend picking them up. So until next time, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus. I'll talk to you later.